rediscovering truth. And that's what philosophy, I think, is about. Friend of knowledge. Knowledge seeking truth. The philosopher is one who loves and seeks truth. And really, deep down, isn't that all of us? That's why we come to university, that's why we study, that's why we are on our personal journey. We are seeking truth. In every subject, be it philosophy, English, science, maths, all of them, beautiful and different ways of seeking truth. And if there is a God, he made it all. So all of it is ultimately seeking that one truth. And that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, so like at university and all that stuff, you explored philosophy in a very intellectual way. But how did you like explore your faith and your personal relationship with God in a less kind of academic way, or do you see academia as like the way you do see God and explore that faith?
Well, I suppose there are two parts to that question. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, I had this conversation with my mum a number of times, and her faith is very different to mine. It's all about acceptance and not questioning things. And I said to her a number of years ago, I said, Mum, your faith is very, very different to mine. You accept what's given to you, and you love faith itself. My faith is a more academic, intellectual faith. I believe because, I started believing because I was taught to believe, but every single day for me is a choice to continue believing. And in many ways, it's a faith rooted in, I suppose, that it makes sense. The story of religion just makes sense. I'm not going to go into it, but if you look into the arguments for God, if you look into any attempted arguments against God, and that's quite ridiculous, you realise that it makes so much more sense. We as a human race, on that constant seeking of the journey of God. That said, as you were alluding to, I have had many faith crises. My life has gone from one faith crisis to another. And the little bits that join those up are parts of holding on to the faith that I had, or building the new faith that I have, or reconciling with the way other people have faith. But if any of us believe anything, and if any of us want to truly believe anything, we must accept that that faith will be challenged, it will be made weak at times, and we will struggle with it. And that is only a good thing, because ultimately, there are no certainties in this world, in anything. When you think about it all the way down to the base properties, we cannot be certain of anything. And so anyone who says that they know anything is being ridiculous. Anybody who says they know God exists and that's just it, they're being ridiculous. Anybody who says they know there isn't a God, they're also being ridiculous, because there are no certainties. And the problem that we have is we want certainty. We're pattern-seeking animals. We want to know things because we're constantly seeking knowledge and seeking truth. And so when we have our faith shaken slightly, we have a tendency to abandon it. Like with anything, you do something that you love, and then as soon as you hit the rocks, you kind of abandon it. Like the parable of the sower. You know, when the seed grows amongst the thorns or the rocks, you kind of lose it and you drop it. It's like with anything. Whenever you take up a new hobby or a new job or a new career or a new course, you've got that honeymoon period where you really enjoy it, everything's going great, but then suddenly the honeymoon period is over and it starts getting tough. And if the foundation isn't strong enough, you'll just give it up. And a lot of us have that danger that we give it up. But if the foundation is strong enough, it will carry you through those times. And some of the best advice that I've been given is to, I don't want to believe it, pretend that you understand it so that you get through those difficult times, so that when you do get out of it, you realise, all right, it was just a blip. You know, it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to not know all the answers. It's okay to be uncertain, because ultimately, faith is about taking something that you can't know for sure and letting it change your life and letting it direct your life. And that's amazing, and that is powerful. every single day is a choice, actively or passively, every single day for each one of us is a choice to continue doing the things that we're doing, believing the things that we believe. And you find wisdom in the oddest of places. The number of times where I've cited Disney movies and all sorts of things for the little bits of wisdom, personally, one of my absolute favourites, every time I mention it I start tearing up, is actually Wreck-It Ralph. You know the bit where he's flying down into the volcano, he's about to hit all the Mentos, and he says, I'm bad and that's good, I'm never good and that's not bad, and the only person that I have to be is me. Oh God, that gets me in the pieces. And it's about truth to self, and I love that. But oddly enough, one of the most interesting places that I found a little bit of wisdom was in the movie Prometheus. Terrible movie. But in it, there's a flashback where a girl is talking to her father, who's a medic in some jungle. And she's asking him why he's wearing a cross. And he said, well, I believe in God, and I believe after death. And she goes, well, how do you know? And I said, well, I don't know, but I choose to believe it. And what is interesting is that reality, that we don't know. We don't know anything. We don't know we're even here. We don't know anything for certain. But it's a free will choice that we take to accept it and let it change us. Because ultimately what we do believe is that the faith is bigger than us. And faith can transform us, transform our lives, and make us into better people than we were. And that is the most incredible thing, how faith can change you into being the best person that you can be, and directing you and helping you realise those things. That's what faith does. It's also what a wife does, but you know.
I really don't get your obsession with Disney. It's not that great.
Well, I don't trust Disney more than Star Wars, but that's a whole different matter. But
I love Star Wars.
I did, but...
Oh, you hate the new ones?
Oh my God, is that not even a Star Wars movie?
I'm going to be honest, wasn't too fussed on like...
Flying Leia?
Anyway, to get back on topic, guys.
I would...
Inconsistent with itself, inconsistent with last week.
The amount of focus here is beyond me. Like,
or after.
We'll talk about it
afterwards, yeah.
So, like, that you've spoken so far about your life in university and as a student, and as most of us here are students, that's quite...
Oh, sorry, let me just go back. But it's also worth noting, when I was at university, I was part of the Catholic Society. I also visited the Christian Union a few times, but being Catholic, I was mostly involved in the Catholic Society. And the reason why I want to mention this, actually, was our priest, Father Peter Geldard, one of the most amazing men that I know. Interestingly, he started his career as an Anglican and then became a priest. So he's actually one of the few priests that I know who's married. But that's just a little anecdote. But what I loved about being part of the Catholic Society was that he was a very academic and very intelligent man who always encouraged questioning and always encouraged learning. And that is so important. And some of the best priests that I've known, from a Catholic perspective, have been chaplains who are involved in learning and involved with young people who are learning. And I suppose that's the same thing with this Christian Union you're part of. This is a union of faith in a place of learning. Because all too often we seem to think that faith and knowledge are two separate things. Never the twain shall meet. And that is such a sad way of viewing it. One of the things that got me through university was the priest that I knew who encouraged learning and encouraged questioning things. And that, for me, was one of the biggest helps for my faith.
So, like, as being like life goes on beyond university, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
And so after university, you became a teacher. So how have you found being a teacher of like philosophy, and also getting married and having children of your own? How have you found your faith has affected your life in that way, and how have you found your life has affected your faith?
From a careers point of view, I have to say this and admit this. Sometimes I feel a little bit guilty. I feel like I'm capitalising by being Catholic, because I'm the head of RE in a Catholic school. It's kind of like one of those jobs, it's kind of like you're made for it. And I enjoy it, but I absolutely love my job. I love what I do because I'm the head of my subject, and so I am able to guide it and direct it in certain ways. You don't get as much power as you think you're going to get when you're head of department. But I love being involved in that side of education, in nurturing and encouraging, and being able to practice faith in a public environment. It's a Catholic school, but our students are all Christian denominations, as well as non-denominational, as well as other religions as well. And being able to express and share your faith at work is something which, I'm going to be honest with you, if you get a chance to work in an environment where you can be public about your faith and not be ashamed or embarrassed of it, then you have found a great career, or you're just a much better person than me. I find it very hard to be public with my faith. Very, very hard. Because not everybody cares. And when I was younger, I would talk about my faith all the time when I was at school. You know, and nobody wants to listen to a 10-year-old kid carrying a Bible around, you know? I don't think they've got anything to say. But I find it very difficult being told constantly that no one really cares. And being argued with constantly. When I was at school, A-levels, university, I came to realise that no one really wants to listen. No one's actually that bothered. When you encounter your housemates or your classmates, they don't want to hear your story. They don't want to hear what you believe. And so to be in an environment where you can be public about it and talk about it, and not only is it normal, but you're actually welcomed and praised for it, that's something wonderful. Hold on to this experience, because unfortunately the world isn't as forgiving and kind. They don't always want to know. So if you can demonstrate and practice that in the workplace, then you are very blessed. So for me, working in as an RE teacher is great. For that side of it, I get to live my vocation every day. Because teaching is a vocation. If any of you are considering teaching, there is no harder or more rewarding job than teaching, except parenting. So I've got both now. But it's great to be able to do that. I suppose one of the ways in which being an RE teacher has sort of like helped me in my personal faith is, I suppose, whenever I've come to do things like marriage, preparation and preparing to have children, I know all the answers because I'm teaching about it all the time. But I'll tell you one thing which is really, and I suppose I've come to become known amongst my A-level student a little bit of a relationship doctor, because a lot of my students come up to me and ask me questions about relationships, and I don't volunteer the information directly, but they ask me, they tease it out of me. Well, I've learned a few things about it, and for me personally, I find this advice has made so much sense, and I suppose it's a way of seeing relationships within context of faith. And I just want to share this anecdote. I heard this a number of years ago, and I was told there are 5 levels to a relationship. There's the physical, the intellectual, the social, the emotional, and the spiritual. Did I get those right? Physical, no, there's a social, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, physical. And what does that mean? It means there are different ways that you can bond to a person. You can bond to them socially, like your mates, watching football. You can bond them intellectually, for example, having long-blown conversations about Star Wars, or about politics, or tell people to stop talking about politics and history in their RE lessons. Then you've got the emotional, where you bond with a person, cry with them, you tell them how you feel, all the things that are deep down. Then there's a spiritual, sharing what you believe. And then there's the physical, and that's where you find the person that you want to be with for the rest of your life. Now, why is this relevant? You asked me about faith in my marriage, my family life. When I was growing up, I knew one thing. I didn't want to date. Now, you can say that's probably influenced by my dad, who told me that women are trouble, but I didn't want to date because I knew that I wasn't interested in dating for the sake of dating. It didn't make any sense to me. I never saw the point to it. I had lots of female friends, but I wasn't interested in that. Because for me, a relationship with somebody needed to have a purpose and an end result. When I have students ask me about relationships and how faith applies to that, I say to them, the single most important thing about a relationship is that you believe in the same things. Now, I have friends and family who are in relationships or are married to people who do not believe the same things as them. And if they can make it work, kudos to them. More often than not, it's a struggle. Because there is nothing more important in your life than believing the same things about family, about purpose, about sex, about children, All of these things are fundamental to what you are and what you believe and who you are. And if you can't share that with the person that you love, then there is something very, very important missing. My wife and I argue all the time. Every single day. We're arguing, we're shouting at each other, we're cursing each other.
Huh?
We never argue about serious things. We always argue about why I didn't make her a coffee this morning. Or why is it that my Mother's Day card took you 2 minutes to make and you didn't buy me a fancy one from, Waterstone, or wherever. We always argue about stupid things which don't matter. Because fundamentally, we agree about everything. We agree about life and family. We agree about children. We agree about God. We agree about everything. We're so similar, it's ridiculous. Because when we weren't looking for each other. We were looking for somebody who believed the same things. Your faith has to guide the most important decisions of your life. What's more important than the person you're going to marry? For me, faith directed that relationship. And now I'm very happy to say that I'm happy now than I've ever been in my entire life. I have 2 children who are absolutely amazing. I love them like crazy. They drive me crazy. But it's my faith that's directed that decision. And there was never a question I had to marry a woman who believed what I believed. Not just about religion, but also culture, background, attitudes to the important things. Like whether or not we get a Chinese takeaway or buy a pizza. The things that are every day. So we never argue about that because it's a given. So faith has to direct the most important decisions of your life. Otherwise, it's just tacked on extra. And what happens to tacked on extras? They get brushed aside because they're no use. So if your life is a life of faith, then your faith has to direct big decisions. The kind of job you have, the kind of family you're going to raise, the kind of person you're going to be, the friends you're going to have. Those are the big questions. Those are the big things that make you you. And your faith has to guide that, direct that.
So if there's anyone exploring their faith, or is interested in reading up on philosophy, is there any advice that you give for those kind of people, or like any philosophers that you specifically would direct them towards?
Well, I suppose it depends on how serious you want to get into it. But well, if you've got a bit of light bedtime readers, also the Summa Theologica by Aquinas. I suppose what is interesting is how much information there is out there. If you've got a casual interest in philosophy and in theology, there are names I could give you. For example, William Lane Craig, an absolutely amazing evangelical pastor, just philosophical wisdom beyond belief. His website's called Reasonable Faith. Look it up. Bishop Robert Barron, he's got a website called Word on Fire. Obviously, he's going to be a bit more Catholic. Again, wisdom beyond belief. And the things he talks about, his movie reviews, he reviews things the Pope does, he reviews philosophy, all sorts of stuff. So Bishop Robert Barron, William Lane Craig, D.K. Chesterton, great theologian from last century. There's a show on EWTN called The Apostle of Common Sense, and it's all about him. If anybody's ever been a little bit put off because they've seen a lot of really charismatic atheists and they don't know how you're supposed to respond to them, Douglas Wilson and Christopher Hitchens' Collision, download it and watch it, it's amazing. Douglas Wilson is outstanding against Christopher Hitchens. Watch it. He's brilliant. I've got a couple of theological issues with some of the things that he says, but really great stuff. Douglas Wilson, look him up. So lots there. If you want to go into, and they're all on YouTube, so you can download those and watch those. If you want to get deep into your philosophy, look up Thomas Aquinas. As far as I'm concerned, Thomas Aquinas is as his book suggests, the sum of all theology. His main work, and this is one of the beautiful things about theology and philosophy. His main work is constant questions. Question, answers. Questions, answers. We are always asking questions. So definitely Thomas Aquinas, one of the main guys to look into. If you want to go really deep, you've got your Plato and your Aristotle. A big fan of Aristotle, as was Thomas Aquinas. Big fan of Aristotle. And interestingly, Bishop Barron is a massive Thomas Aquinas fan and an Aristotelian. It's one reason why I like them. But I'm more than happy after this, if anybody has any questions about any particular branch of philosophy that you're interested in or want to know about, definitely, I'd love to talk about it. I love talking about philosophy. Morality, ethics, philosophy of religion, all of that stuff. So I'm happy to share a reading list with you.
Yeah, I second that. Aquinas is like my favourite. Just my favourite.
Even though he was actually like the main Catholic.
Yeah, but...
we can ignore that. That was pre-Reformation, so...
Finally, the most important question of the night is that, seeing as you were my philosophy teacher, and I was your philosophy student, am I not the best philosophy student that you ever had the privilege of
So
teaching?
back on Star Wars Last Jedi. What I loved about Johnny's class, and also about James's class, wherever you are, James, constant questions, constantly asking questions, never being satisfied with the answer, staying back at the end and asking more questions all the time. And I have a Year 12 class now, reminds me of your class, because I've got a few of the students who are always staying back and asking questions, more questions, and never satisfied. And they say, but sir, I saw this, what do you think of that? Or sir, I saw this, what do you think of that? And as far as I'm concerned, what makes a great student, what makes a great Christian, what makes a great human being, is someone who is never satisfied, but is always seeking answers, always looking for truth, is always struggling, wrestling. Because that, in my mind, is what Thomas Aquinas means by seeking God. We are constantly seeking, constantly looking. And I certainly feel for my life that I'm constantly seeking, constantly realizing, constantly learning, and I'm constantly amazed. Things that my students tell me, I never thought of it that way, and I'm constantly amazed. Things I see on YouTube, never thought of it that way, constantly amazed. Things that I've studied and taught for 10 years, realized in a new way, constantly amazed. You've got to be always asking. The unexamined life is a life that's not worth living. Socrates. You've got to be asking questions. And as far as I'm concerned, any student who was willing to realize that learning is a relationship between you and your tutor, challenging each other, that is a great student. And Johnny was one of those students.
Can we do a loud, warm round of applause for Mr. Capone?